All right. What's going on, guys? It is Madman Planet. We are back here in NECANN, Syracuse, New York. And like I said, this is interview number 3. They keep on coming. And I got Gary with Gary's Indoor Garden Supply, known as Gigs. And he is here hanging out, and we got him on the podcast. So what's going on?
I'm just here enjoying NECANN Syracuse. I'm a veteran of many NECANNs, going back to like 2018, 2019 in Boston. So I'm delighted that we're having them in New York. I'd like to see them rise to the size of Boston, but we're a smaller market, so it's just a pleasure to be here anyway.
You know, I think Boston is probably one of their biggest shows.
It must be.
And it is a great show. But, you know, I think what's really cool is NECANN and Mark, the owner, who's a very, very nice guy, really awesome. You know, they're expanding. They were in Baltimore for the first time this year. They were in Michigan. You know, they were doing a lot of different things. And I think as we see, we're going to see a bigger expansive market here in New York and other places as well. I think also, too, is a lot of people still don't understand that these type of events exist and that they're out there. And there's so many professionals in cannabis. And that's one thing that I love. So when you're here for... Your store is located here in Syracuse, or is it nearby?
My store is in Rome.
Rome. Okay. And how far is Rome from Syracuse?
45, 50 minutes.
Fantastic. Have you seen any of your customers here?
I did. I saw 3 so far.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your store and what you got involved in cannabis.
Well, Gary's Indoor Garden Supply was born in 2017. I'm 70 years old. I've been in retail my whole life. And also worked as a musician. So I ran a music store for all those years. And as the internet and big box stores kind of whittled away at that, it became obvious to me that mom and pop music gear didn't have a great future. Although, again, I had a great run in it, so I don't have any complaints. But it occurred to me, well, I need to do something for a living. What else do I know a little bit about that I could transition to? So I took a little corner of the back of the music store and invested a few $1,000s in some supplies that I use. I was thinking, what do I use? We'll start there. And it was almost immediate. The musicians would come in and say, what? It was, musicians, cannabis.
Kind of go together.
They kind of worked really well together. And I'll just I'll abbreviate the story. So within a few years, it became obvious to me that I'm reordering for that back section of the store increasingly more each month, each year than I am for all the music products, until it got to the point where you did $250 restock in the music store, but you did $10,000 restock in the grow supplies.
Yeah.
I think it's time to get rid of the music stuff altogether and go all in with cannabis. So I did. It's been a great, great run. I served on Senator Griffo's panel of experts prior to legalization, was very, very, very involved in my advocacy activism en route to getting cannabis legalized. In Rome, New York, I am known as the guy, the old man, the podhead, the guy who came out big for it, who came out publicly. So that's worked well for me. I am noticing that now, 3 years into legalization, the home grow market is leveling off, if not actually going the other way a little bit. That's okay. That's okay, because there are a lot of folks that I dealt with prior that had money that grew cannabis because they wanted to have good cannabis. They didn't want to settle for what was on the street, but they had money. And now you have people that have money, and they can go to the Verona Collective. They can go to a whole lot of other great dispensaries in upstate New York and get wonderful cannabis. So they don't grow anymore. But what I'm left with is some very, very passionate growers who still do it and will always do it for the love of growing the plant, because they love sharing it with other people. And probably the number one reason versus any commercial market is cost.
Yes.
So I deal with people who use cannabis every day, who depend on it every day. It's their lifeline for most of them. Remember, I'm 70 years old. I won't say the bulk of my customers, but at least half of them are over Medicare age. So we depend on this plant. We use it every day. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to continue to serve them. I see you guys are involved with AC Infinity. I'm an AC Infinity dealer.
Oh, fantastic!
I have AC
Great company.
Infinity grow equipment at the store. I have it demo equipment running in the store, and some of the other stuff that you sell too. So that's what Gigs is, and I'm glad to be the guy who does it.
Honey,
Hey,
please go first. Sorry. No, and I think that's cool. You know, one thing is that makes you a pioneer, and being able to decipher a way to get into the cannabis scene, whether it's intentional or unintentional, kind of like with you. You know, hey, I'll just set this up in the back store, see what happens. Oh my God, this is starting to make a lot more money, and then this is where I can transition. I think that's the biggest thing in today's economy and market with cannabis is we need to stand up. We need to create a safe place for people, because that involves more people getting active and being proactive with cannabis versus just kind of, you know, relying on dispensaries. Not that I don't have anything against dispensaries, but I do as a home grower much prefer to watch my plant grow. To see,
you know, it wasn't just a business move. All the years that I was on the road as a musician and ran my music store, very passionate about the product. And in the background, I was also very passionate about my own cannabis cultivation, my own cannabis. Even on the road as a musician, with everybody else was, we go from town to town, I'd find a head shop. And back then, I'm talking the 1970s now. And back then, if you wanted to copy a High Times, you had to get it from the head shop. You had to get it from under the counter somewhere. If you wanted a book about even growing cannabis, if you wanted a Rosenthal book, you didn't get it at the library. So it had been a passion of mine for years. So my coming out wasn't just, hey, let's make some money. My coming out was saying, I'm going to do this now and let the chips fall where they may. And to my surprise, it felt pretty well.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point. If you come out to any industry, whether it's cannabis or any other company, and you're just here to make money, you're probably not going to, especially as a business owner myself. You're here to provide solutions and solve problems. And when you do that, that's where the value comes, and that's what creates the revenue. And
cannabis also had 100 years of prohibition, behind it, and that doesn't fall away just because we legalized it.
Yeah,
what I'm seeing. The mindset, that ounce of weed you have, bud, you can throw it on the dashboard of your car now. If you get stopped, you can tell the officer, "Did you ever see weed like that? Would you like a piece?"
Yeah. And what are they going to do?
Yeah.
They're even having people get their plants back. They get stolen sometimes. I was watching an episode of Cops, and they're like,
brother,
we used to arrest them, and now we're helping track down who stole his plant.
I see it all the time. In fact, with my indoor grow business, the last 2 years, because when it actually became legal, I mean, we never cared anyway, but legal, to grow, and people would do it in their yards. The risk is no longer legal. The risk is some thief taking what's yours.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time, sadly, and I see it from my customers. They'll be out to dinner, they'll bring in their phone, and they'll show me, this is what happened when I was out to dinner. Well, they came to your house with masks on, they stole everything you have, they did it on camera, and they know you're not home. Yeah. And you can't get home in time. So, that's where we are.
And that's the disheartening thing, because maybe these people are not cancer patients, medical patients, and they really are relying on that medicine.
Many of them are.
Many
of them are.
Now you leave them with a hard choice, and maybe the people don't have money to go to dispensaries, and that's one of the benefits about growing is if you don't have a lot of money and you're a good grower, you won't need to go to the dispensary as much because you'll be able to make it yourself. And I think for me, I think that's really the pride and joy. It's one thing to smoke, but when you know that you made that, I feel like it just tastes and feels and just acts differently on the body.
And one thing I'm seeing with this community, with this culture that we've always built, but we're more open with it now, is how, well, for example, it used to be my rule, never buy weed from somebody who doesn't smoke. And that was a hard, fast rule. I never trusted anybody to buy weed from them if they didn't smoke.
Yeah,
but now I see it all the time. I see people who don't smoke, who have never smoked, who can grow, who happen to be good at growing plants, and they'll say, I don't smoke it, I don't use it, but my father does, my mother does, my neighbor does, and they're sick. Yeah. And they depend on this. I can do this so easily for them. I have abandoned that mindset that I wouldn't take weed from people who don't smoke it, because some of the most wonderful, heartfelt growers don't happen to use it. But I remind them all, that's okay. the plant will always be there for you.
100%.
There will be a prescription that you don't like somewhere down there. There will be something, and you'll remember that your neighbor or your mom, why they used it, and then you'll reach for it too, and I'll be able to help.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're at our 10-minute mark for the podcast.
Thank you, buddy.
What I want to do is get you on my 2-hour podcast. That's
Sure.
a virtual session.
Sure.
And that goes every Wednesday. We go live 20 hours a month. And then we also do our regular podcast. In the meantime, before we get connected again, where can people find your awesome store in Rome, New York?
It's at 403 and a half West Dominic Street. Although the business cards I'm handing out today have my old address, you may or may not remember, but Rome, New York suffered a major tornado this summer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My store was ground zero, almost.
Wow.
I lost the store. I've already moved. I'm fine, but it's 403 and a half West Dominic Street in Rome, New York. I also am the head of the Facebook group Legacy in CNY. So check out LICNY, Legacy in CNY. The business is done here. The activism advocacy is done here, where we get deeper into what we do and what we believe. So yeah, please visit me in Rome. And it's a pleasure meeting you here today in Syracuse today.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, it's been a pleasure meeting you, Gary,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate all that you're doing and what you have done since the 70s and then today. It must be a great feeling to see where we are now, that it all kind of has, in a way, paid off.
It is, man.
Well, guys, we have more podcasts coming your way. Please stay tuned, and it won't be long before our next interview. Have a wonderful day. And if you want